Hi, and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast, an Authors Tuesday episode with Mark Villareal. So it's great to welcome Mark on the podcast. He has six children's books out at the moment, and he's obviously written a lot of other books prior to that. But I'm really looking forward to talking to Mark today. He's from the States, so it's great to welcome along. Mark, thanks a lot for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me on. I'm real excited about being on there.
Yeah, no, thanks a million. And we'll probably start off the podcast, if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners and the people watching on YouTube a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into writing in the first place.
I have a background of business. So I was in corporate America here for 35 years, 21 what you call at the C level. So I always reported to the CEO or the president of the company, which really drove my passion on personnel development. How do we motivate employees? How do we build the right cultures in companies? And I had early in my career, I was what was you would call a turnaround specialist in business. So I had the knack to turn around organizations, and it was always with culture and motivation. Then you get people to buy in. So that was my passion, and I did that, and I retired from that 8 years ago, and I wrote at the time I was retiring, I wrote a business book called Shortcuts Get You Lost, and I published it. And it's funny because it sat there for a little bit. I procrastinated, one bad habit I had, and I got it published, and it became a bestseller, international bestseller, number one in three countries. It's like, who knew? Sometimes you're like, who knew, right? And then I started blogging. I didn't have a LinkedIn. I didn't have, certain accounts. So I started blogging on LinkedIn, telling stories. And somehow I got into telling stories about my mother. And I would say that she was the best leadership coach who chose to be a housewife because I was the youngest of seven, special relationship. And just the things that she taught me that really helped make me the leader that I was, right? And before I knew it, I had 30,000 followers, and I'm like, and I told my wife, I think I need to write that book. So that was my second book, and it became an international bestseller, number one in six countries. So it's like we would laugh because it's like, who knew I was a writer, right? You know, and even now I thought, how many books can I write? Well, I have 13 books out now. So I stayed in the business writing of books and I became a business coach, a leadership coach, because we moved to the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, where I live and we love. And then I got the knack for writing children's books, which have become my passion because I now kind of retired from the leadership business coaching. And my passion has been how do I inspire youth? And that's where I'm at today.
Yeah, that's a great story, Mark. Well done to you. That's amazing. Brilliant. And
Yeah.
can I ask you, why do you believe teaching children at a young age value isn't important?
Well, I explained, that in business, values are how you start a business and you build everything on top of it. That should build your culture. That should drive your success and your motivation. It works the same with you and I individually. The values that you and I have, we each have probably 5 to 7 personal core values that factor every decision we make. So it's important to teach children the right values from the beginning because they model what they see and who they follow. And sometimes that can be a detriment, right? Based upon what they're witnessing, who they're modeling from. And so that was important to me. And from my mother's teachings, as I spoke of, she was always big on, starting from the beginning, like we all learn, right and wrong, but even letting me face consequences, because she would tell me, I'm going to raise you based on rewards or consequences. I'd like to raise you based on rewards, but you're going to have consequences because you need to learn. And as soon as you learn that when you change your behavior in the right way, we'll get you back on the reward side. It works the same it's amazing because that works in children, it works in business. That's exactly how.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I agree with you 100%. And I suppose where did the ideas come from for the children's stories, Mark? Was it from Because I'm an author myself. Like, where did the ideas come from?
Well, the books I write, and I have six. I have this the latest one in front of me.
Oh, brilliant!
It's
Yeah,
called
yeah.
um, it's called The Adventures of Park Ranger Brock Cliffhanger and his Junior Park Rangers. So long title, but it's funny. My wife is a retired nurse, and she's a great inspiration for me. In fact, she helps guide and correct me. And before she retired, nurses can make good money. And to her, it was, I want to make an impact more than money. So when we were living in Texas, in the States here, and she said, I want to just find people who have a young child that needs help. And so there was a couple named Molly and John that they had a baby named Jack that had a digestive problem. And so my wife was hired to take care of Jack so they could work as Jack was growing up, he became our adopted grandson, really, just about. And at this time in business, I was traveling quite a bit. So I was like at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., and I bought an astronaut outfit for a kid and a little boy, and I sent it to him, and he got thrilled by that.
That's
Well, I
lovely stuff.
uncovered the Junior Park Ranger program that has where they learn about safety and hiking and so we have national parks here, but any park, right? What are the things you do so you don't get lost? What are the things you do so if you are lost, how do you prevent fires? All kinds of learning. And so I got a lot of those materials, but I also bought some stuff for him and I wrote it and instead of sending it to him from me, I thought of the name Brock Cliffhanger, and I sent him an anonymous letter with a packet saying, "My name is Park Ranger Brock Cliffhanger, and I want you to be part of our program." And his mom said it built his confidence, and she said he's so excited. And one time she sends me a text. She says, "I dropped him off at school today," and he said, "I can't believe I'm going to be a junior park ranger." And so over time, I would send them a hat, I would send them a uniform, a vest, and it was always from the letter of Brock Cliffhanger. And one day she says, "I want to tell them it's from you." And I said, "Please don't, because it excites me that he's excited. Now he's like 15 years old now. He knows, where it came from. But eventually then he started teaching his brother, Warren. And so they're the main characters of the book and then other Junior Park Rangers. And then I would send them, I have a picture of him where he's teaching 10 kids in the neighborhood. I mean, it really, excited him and helped his mom says it helped develop him as well. But that was the driver. And like I told her, you don't have to tell him it's from me. Eventually he'll find out, right? He grows older, but because it was the thrill to inspire him.
Wow, that's great. And then I've kind of passed on to him then, to help other children. Then that's amazing. Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And
Yep.
can you talk as well about that's brilliant to get the bestsellers? Was that the first and second book became bestsellers in different countries throughout the world?
Yeah, yeah. My first and second, my second one was probably and then I had a book on millennials, which now we have a younger group, but it was called The Millennial Factor, because at the time in business, gray-haired people like me, I'm a baby boomer. A lot of the baby boomers are like, I don't understand these younger groups. And I had success with them. So I kind of dissected why am I having success? And then I explained that in the book and how to motivate them and the difference. So that became I have three international bestsellers. Those were them. The Brock Cliffhanger books have become each one has hit number one on Amazon. So they're not international bestsellers, but they're Amazon bestsellers as
Brilliant.
well.
Yeah.
But so that's been exciting. It's really, can you pass on a message and that others can share?
Right. And no, like that's huge success. Well done, Mark. It's absolutely brilliant. But I suppose what big moment are you most proud of when it comes to the children's stories? I know obviously that one you just told me is a big one, but what would you say would be the most memorable so far as a children's author?
One thing I started doing is each I have 8 to 12 junior park rangers that go on the trips with Brock Cliffhanger in the stories. The three core ones are Jack, his brother Warren, and now their little sister Amaya. They're the same, but I'm able to rotate the other names, and I pick actual names of parents that my wife and I see that we think they're being, good parents. And then when I let them know, hey, your children's in the book, they get excited when they read it to my kids in this book, right?
Brilliant, yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's exciting. And we had one young gentleman that he worked for me like 10, 12 years ago. And in fact, he endorsed my millennial book. He was one of the millennials. And he came from Texas to visit us. So that's 16 hours away. But he came out here and stayed a week with his family. He has three kids now. And just uh, he talks about the impact it had on his kids, but then he was telling me things that I mentored him on that I didn't remember, that he still remembers and teaches others. So that, it's the impact. It's do I make a difference or can I make an impact? And you do that you know, in all humility. My mom, one of the first things she taught me was humility is a strength, not a weakness. And that she was probably whacking me on the head when she told me that though, but uh but it was a good
Yeah.
lesson because it was humbling,
Yeah.
and to see how successful he is and such a good father. Him and his wife are good parents, and that's what warms our heart. So that's the big thing when we see that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's lovely. Yeah, thanks very much, Mark. And do you have your children's books there? Would you mind showing, maybe talk a little bit about each one? That'd be really helpful just for people that are watching and listening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, these are all Brock Cliffhanger. So the
Yeah,
last one is called Shenandoah National Park Exploration. So that's a national park in Virginia. That's the most recent. The Yellowstone, which is very, you know, obviously very big here in the States, and that. This is the Grand Canyon, so you can see it kind of looks like a desert, which is
brilliant.
the
Yeah,
Grand Canyon
right.
there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yosemite, and Yosemite is real big, and so it explains everything about Yosemite and that. But the big part too is because even if they don't live in the States, there's parks everywhere, so it does teach those safeties or what happens when you encounter a bear or wildlife. This one is actually it's called the Missing Hikers of the Allegheny State Park. So this is a state park that is in New York and Pennsylvania area, and it deals with some kids that went hiking and got lost, and so they're going to look for them. And so that's a good lesson on what should they have done before they went hiking. What should they do once you're lost? Well, that type. And then this one, of course, I live in the Great Smoky Mountains, so I had to
Mhm.
write about that. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
called Mountain Rescue: Preserving Our Great Smoky Mountain National Park.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah,
the Great Smoky Mountains had big forest fires in 2016. So I go into what caused those forest fires. And a lot of it is what you call Murphy's Law. What could go wrong does go wrong. And that's why the fires spread. But then what can they do to protect that? And even little things that people don't realize, like don't bring firewood from home
yeah,
because
yeah,
you may come from another part, but that firewood might have insects in it that aren't a part of this forest. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
the Great Smoky Mountains have some trees that are dead because of actually insects from Asia, So it's little things like that that is like a big part of learning, you know.
Yeah, no, that's great because that's really what you're trying to get across to children and parents to in these books, really, isn't it? It's kind of to give these messages. That's so useful for anybody. That's brilliant, Mark. And
Right.
would you mind maybe reading maybe an abstract of maybe one of your books just to give people a taste? Maybe the description part even would be great, please. Yeah, no problem. Thank
Yeah,
you.
the most recent one, Shenandoah. So
Yeah,
it
brilliant.
says
Thank you.
So it says, uh, Park Ranger Brock Cliffhanger is more than a legend. It is his dedicated guardian of our national and state parks, with a heart devoted to teaching, caring, and preserving these natural treasures. His thrilling adventures not only tell his story, but also celebrate his greatest joy, developing the junior park ranger team and nurturing each young park ranger. Being a park ranger requires selflessness, empathy, intelligence, leadership, and humility, all with a focus on protecting others and the environment. Brock exemplifies these qualities and teaches that true leaders pay it forward, and every day he inspires others by living out these values. So that's kind of gives you the core because it teaches.
Mm,
I talk about good role models, and I have a,
yeah.
I always tell a park ranger, thanks for being a good role model because I've never met a park ranger that hasn't been. They love what they do. I kind of get jealous of what they do. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
because had I had to do it all over, I'd be a park ranger. So,
yeah. Yeah. No, it's a brilliant message. Thanks very much, Mark. The covers of the book, the artwork is really good. It really it kind of stands out. Who done that for you? The illustrations,
so what was the question? I'm sorry.
the covers of the book. The artwork is very
Yeah.
good. Did you do them yourself, or did you get an artist to do that?
Well, it's actually my design, but I had an artist fine tune it.
Yeah.
It's funny because in when it first talks about Brock Cliffhanger in the start of the book, I say that to the children, he's larger than life.
Mhm.
And that's why I made him larger than life on the cover. So it
Brilliant.
kind of
Yeah.
exemplifies that. So
Mm.
it's funny that I'm one of those, you may be the same. My best ideas come at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when I woke up, I'm like, I know how I want to design, and so I keep it that way. But then with the theme of the park behind it,
Mm. Yeah, no, it's brilliant, really, really good. And what artist do you want to mention? The artist that done that work, Mark.
uh, well, actually, it's my daughter-in-law, and she's that's not. Uh, what she does for a living and that. So yeah, I won't mention her name so she don't get
Yeah,
bombarded, but yeah, it's in the family.
yeah, no, it's really good, really, really good.
Yep.
And
Yep.
can I ask as well, as a youth, as a youth, what is the best advice you received that you would like to pass on?
That's a good question. Yeah. And once again, I always tell people too, especially when I would do coaching on leadership, forgive me that I talk about my mother a lot, but she was an
Oh,
impact on me.
yeah.
My mom would always tell me, never let that little boy inside of you grow out of you. And she said that she says, I want you to understand that when you're a youth, and you're a boy, but even a little girl, you would tell you don't let that grow out of you. You believe you can accomplish anything. And it's only when you grow older that the world tells us that we can't. And she says, I want you to believe that you can, and keep that inspiration. And in fact, I would say that's one of the big drivers on why I write these books.
Yeah, so that's great, Mark. Like, and what would you like to leave or our audience? What wisdom would you like to give the audience that are listening tonight, um, all over the world?
You sure? Well, I'm not always sure if it's wisdom, but once again, I'll leave you the wisdom of my mother.
Yeah.
She would tell me, I was always one of those that wanted to impress her, and I think most kids want to impress their mom. Hey, mom, I'm going to be you want me to be a policeman when I grow up, and then the next week I want to be a fireman. And finally, she just said, oh, well, she would say Marcos, so Hispanic. uh, I if you want to know what I truly want you to be when you grow up. I want you to be a good example. So whatever you choose, I'll smile down from heaven if you're a good example. And that's what I tell people, just, especially the youth. Whatever you choose, think about if you're being a good example and follow good examples because it's important too. So that's my
What a
message.
yeah, what a great message, absolutely, yeah. And can I ask you, when you're writing the books, what kind of strategy do you use? Like, do you kind of, how long does it take you to write a children's book? And like, everybody has a different strategy where they write a certain amount of words a day. But what kind of strategy do you use yourself, Mark, when you're doing your writing?
I really work hard on outlining the book first.
Okay.
What are my thoughts? What would I want each chapter to do?
Yeah.
The old 7 habits of highly effective people begin with the end in mind. What do I want the end in mind? Right? And then seek first to understand. So how deep do I want to go in each part of the paragraphs? I outline that. And then when I start writing, there are times, look, I tell writers, when you get writer's block, you get writer's block. Do what you need to do. But when you get inspired, don't stop writing. So I've had days where, my wife is like, it's midnight and you've been up there, you've been writing since this morning. I'm like, I have it right now, right? But I obviously I do like to write each day. I do take I'll make sure I take one day off over the weekend, and then one day my wife and I go do something. So if I'm writing 5 days a week, I'll try to write some each day. But there's some days where I just have the ideas, and when you have the ideas, you have to keep flowing. You have to keep doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because that's an interesting thing you brought up there, like writer's block. A lot of people might experience that from time to time. And have you found like anything that's helped you? There's a book that Julia Carmen wrote before called The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've came across that before. To do a page every day. Did you ever come across that before for anybody that's listening?
Yeah, yeah. If I get writer's block, I still try to write and then I'll
Yeah.
review it the next day. Some days I'm like, okay, I was still onto something. Some days I'll scrap it, like, okay, but it at least encourages me to try to think that. Now, I live in the mountains, so I have the beauty of taking a walk or taking a little drive to a trail. That really helps a lot. The serenity of where I live clears the mind.
Oh, big time. Yeah, great. Do you do any readings for schools in your area? Is that something you do, Mark?
I still read a lot of leadership books, more, that I talked about, and I reread. So I mentioned The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. That's
Yeah,
from the 70s, but
yeah.
I read it every year. You know, and I can't say that there's not a time when I haven't read it that I don't say, I got to remember that. Oh, that's a great point. And that's a book that can be changed, because even when I do my training, I might be training on storytelling for leaders, and I'll change it to Seven Habits of Highly Effective Storytelling, Seven
Mm,
Habits of Highly
yeah,
Effective
yeah,
Communicators. And
yeah,
the content of it changes when you do that. And so I do that for myself as well.
yeah, yeah. And have you, for young readers, have you went and read some of the children's books, for younger, kids for the children's books you have at the moment?
Yeah, yes, I have. And I have another good friend that he wrote two children's books on how to teach children about finances. He ran an
Okay.
accounting business, so that was,
Yeah, right.
but
Yeah.
he called it a little penny learns to save, and the penny is the girl's name,
Yeah,
and Big Buck. So he has one for boys and one for girls. Big Buck
yeah,
learns to save and spend, and and it teaches them those values there,
yeah,
and so him and I communicate and share ideas, and sometimes we challenge each other. And other writers that I talk to. And what I like about talking or sharing with other writers, and right now as I'm expanding more with sharing with children's writers, is we don't worry about who does better. We want the other person to do better. We hope that our idea makes them do much better in their writing and that than it did for us. And then, because it's really when you try to help others, you learn through the process anyway.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's brilliant because, um, myself personally, I go to different schools in the area, to read for children. My book, is have you got an avenue you can do that yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I send my books to the library so they would have them, and oh, I always tell them, look, I'd be welcome to come and visit, and so they have me come and visit and read to their
Yeah,
reading time. On the
yeah.
Smoky Mountains one, the local businesses that I make mention of, they're like, sure, we'd love to have you here as
Oh,
well,
great.
but I
Yeah,
always open to that, and sometimes I'll go out and just hand out my books, when I know there's going to be kids and that
brilliant.
because
Yeah,
it's you want to brighten your day, go make a kid smile, right?
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because I find like when you're reading your books to kids, and they're asking great questions about being an author, it's great to inspire them, isn't it? It's great to kind of inspire.
Yes.
children in that way.
Yes, yeah, it really is. I mean, I've had children and even some adults that say, I always wanted to. And they say 81% of people always thought they had a book in them. I don't know if it's really that
Yeah,
high, but that's the stat that I hear, and I'm like, okay, well, why not write one?
hmm
Because whoever knew I would be an author,
yeah, I know.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And where can people get your books? I know they're on Amazon and the normal places, Barnes and Noble. But do you have any books that they can buy in bookshops in your area, Mark?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've done signings at here the Barnes and Nobles,
Yeah,
are the one, and then there's other smaller stores,
yeah,
the Books a Million and those types that they go in and ask for them as well. And
yeah.
we've done signing in other places. The smaller shops around town here will do signings at, but the Barnes and Noble is probably the big one. But a
Right.
lot of
Yeah,
people order from Amazon or the website of Barnes and Noble as well.
yeah. Because it's nice to have um bookshops still, isn't it, for the people that go and get the actual copies.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Some of them have closed down, but it's good to still have some.
Yeah, definitely.
Ironically, my wife and I met in a bookstore, so
Oh wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
so we like them.
of course. Yeah. Yeah. Can just one of the questions that I want to ask as well. Tell us about your children's books and what story they tell. Like you've kind of given that information already, but is there any specific story that you want to explain tonight that you want to get out to people who are your next customers?
Well, the big story in different ones, like Shenandoah, they see baby bears and they're like, bears, bears. And I see this here where I live. Is people get too close to the bears sometimes, and especially baby bears, and they teach them. Jack, who's one of the junior park rangers, says, "When you see baby bears, Mama Bear is around somewhere." And let me tell you, Mama Bear does a lot like you around her baby bears. And so my biggest thing is because even in the first book, there's a coyote that gets close to them, and the kids panic, and it says, "What do you do?" So it's really respect wildlife and don't start feeding wildlife because then they start getting too comfortable around humans and if you're a bear and that happens they have to put them down and that so respect them and they truly if you respect them and stay away from them they'll respect you they don't want to come around you anyway but enjoy the beauty of them as well and really that's what my book teaches is and the other part is about teamwork because I really go into the characters of each junior park ranger and how different they are, but then how they really learn to embrace each other. And so and that's why I do that. I get really in detailed, where each one is very different.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely brilliant. Yeah, looking forward to picking up copies myself. Great stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
my kids will love them. And can I ask you as well, what's next for yourself? And what do you have coming out next? Have you any other things you want to share that are happening in the next while
Well,
for yourself?
I have I have another book written, and I'm just waiting. I asked someone to do a forward for me on it and it's funny because it's not one of the Brock cliffhangers. I will still continue to do those because, but this one came at 3 in the morning to me, and it's because I have a friend whose wife is really into dog rescue, and I told her you should write a book. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write that book. And so it's a children's book on them rescuing a dog. But what they realize over the process is that although they thought they rescued the dog, how the dog rescued their family. And so it tells that story about the love for the dog and the dog's love for them.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
really good. Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. And that's one of your friends that's going to write that the next while, is it?
Well, yeah, well, they're writing the forward. I already wrote the book.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Graphics
Oh, I
are all
get you.
done.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're just writing the forward because it's their passion and they work with, the dog rescue industry and that.
Oh,
And they,
great.
they're like, it was nice that they were touched that I asked them, and I'm like, well, you're who I thought of, but and they read the book and they're like, we love it, so I always, uh, there was a big difference from writing business books for people in business to children's books because you have to capture them at their level, and hopefully you can. And that was one of the first challenges, and that I've hopefully and gracefully have learned. So
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And you want to mention the business books you've wrote as well, you've written as well, Mark, for people that are listening to get a copy of them.
sure. My first one was called Shortcuts Get You Lost, a leadership fable of the blind leading the blind.
Hmm.
Second one was called The Leadership Lessons from Mom. And then I had the Millennial Factor, 10 keys to success.
Hmm.
I wrote one for women in business called A Script for Aspiring Women Leaders or Women in Leadership, 5 Keys to Success, because I've always been passionate about women in leadership. And then I wrote two smaller ones, one called Mission, Vision, and Values, really teaching someone how do you create those in a business. And it gives them, it's a toolkit. It's really a toolkit. It gives you how do you draft the emails? How do you roll it out in the company? And then another one I wrote during COVID called um, Leadership Crisis Management. A lot of times, unfortunately, I, as a leader, believed in having my teaching my leaders how to be ready for a crisis. And when COVID hit, businesses weren't. I was having companies reach out. That was like, "What do we do?" And I'm like, "Had you done these things, it would have been in their natural instincts to not to keep working instead of what happened is they were stopping, and so that one was important because I believe every leader has to be very good at problem solving, critical thinking, as I call it. That's how I used to, when I would take over a company, I would test my leaders. If they weren't good in critical thinking, they probably shouldn't have been in leadership. And,
Yeah.
but then I would help them develop that. So that's leadership crisis management, is that one.
Yeah, and I'd say it's kind of t like totally different kind of to write a book like that to children's books, how different is the structure? Because I've kind of dabbled a bit in writing something similar, but how did you find the structure of writing something like that compared to children's books?
Well, the business books were actually easier for me because I spent 35 years in corporate America. I lived it, I
Yeah,
taught it, so it was the children's books that were harder,
right. Yeah.
and it's really let me think like a child, and maybe, I think my mom that in some ways I am still a little kid because then it wasn't as hard for me to think like a little kid. What would excite a little kid? Well, how would they think about this? And then, I would ask little kids like Jack and Warren, from and I would learn from them as well. So that was exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's great. Thanks very much. And yeah, that's brilliant. And is there anything else I haven't asked you you'd like to share with the listeners tonight, Mark?
Just, first of all, thanks for having me on. And,
That's great.
some may see on these books, well, he's talking about parks in the United States, but they could be any park.
Hmm.
Because when you talk about following good role models, when you talk about teamwork between kids, and then you're talking about how do you survive, how do you preserve the parks, what's important about fishing and why, or the ecosystems. And so it teaches all of that. And so it doesn't necessarily have to worry about which park it is. You do learn about those parks too, but it's really embracing the other things that are I think are important for us raising our children and the children of the world.
Yeah, well, that's great, Mark, and thanks a lot for a great message. And you talked about earlier on as well. You're a coach as well. Mark, you mentioned you're a coach as well. A kind of a is a kind of coaching. Do you want to talk briefly about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been a leadership business coach
Mhm.
that I've done for the last 8 years. I kind of semi-retired, but I still traveled this year for companies calling up saying, "Hey, and I tell people I've done large companies, $5 billion companies that you would recognize the names to small mom and pops, just and couple companies of all lawyers to a couple companies of all scientists, pharmaceuticals, and they would bring me in for leadership changing. And sometimes I'm like, how's this going? My mindset is, how's this going to be with lawyers, or how's this going to be? And they all embrace it. You know, I always come with the attitude of be uh, be vulnerable and don't be afraid to push back because having spent 35 years in corporate America, 21 at the C level, I have confidence that if you push back, I'll be able to say, I understand what you're saying. Let me tell you what I've seen. And that's been very useful. There's a lot of coaches out there that they get trained how to coach, but they haven't done it. And I've told
Yeah,
them, I've done it, I tasted it. I can tell you, what I've seen or and at the end of the day, sometimes it's okay to disagree. And that's part of growing a company as well. You need people in your organization that you don't always agree, but you do things professionally and with respect.
yeah, yeah. No, like thankfully you'll probably agree with me now that the coaching is really worldwide now. It's getting so much more accepted, because
Yes.
I've just trained myself, and yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like, because there's a difference between mentoring and coaching, isn't there? And you kind of have to give that element as well, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I always say always be coaching, but mentoring's a little more personal as
yeah,
well. I mean, I've gone into companies and worked with their leaders. Some I've worked with them year round. And then there's still a few people that I do one-on-one coaching, and that gets a little more into mentoring about a little deeper in that. But it's great to see their growth when they start repeating your vocabulary. That's when they don't know you're doing this, but you're going, yes, because when they're speaking a little bit like you, it's like they're understanding it now.
hmm yeah, great stuff. No, it's fascinating talking to you, Mark. Absolutely brilliant, and it's such a great life, like a very interesting life, Mark.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, it's great talking to you, and it just shows no matter how far apart we are, how close we really are.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
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 yeah.
and yeah. So the best of luck in everything you do as well. Going forward with all your books. And make sure you share all your great books on to me on link them with your website or wherever way you want to send them, and I'll share them on the show notes for you for people to get them.
I sure will.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
sure
great.
will.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Uh, no, and can I just ask you one other thing before you go? I suppose what kind of author would have influenced you most in the past for your work as the children's book or the business books as well?
Well, business books is easy. You talk about Ken Blanchard and Stephen Covey,
Yeah.
John Maxwell. Yeah, in fact, I think he's written 52 books or more. Uh, so those have always been good influence. On the children's books, I go back to the old ones, that I grew up with, and that would be Dr. Seuss
Yeah.
and those types. Um, always, I always felt that they kept it simple in some ways, and but still had the thing that enticed and captured me, and so that's what I look to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks so much for coming on, Mark. Mark Villareal. So I'm gonna share all Mark's books on the show notes, so make sure to check them out. And once again, thanks a million for coming on and share your great story.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks everybody for tuning in to Mark's Motivational Podcast, another episode of Authors Tuesday. So join me again for another episode of Motivational Thursday coming up next week. So until next time, take good care of yourselves and goodbye. Take care. Good night. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Mark here. Thank you for watching another episode of my Authors Tuesday podcast. I recently published a book of children's stories called The Adventures of Larry Lamppost and Friends. The book began life as bedtime stories I wrote for my own children. If you'd like to purchase my book, follow the link in the description box below. By buying my book, you are also supporting my podcast series for authors, which is giving a voice to writers in Ireland and across the world.